Sorry, but I was just so very angry. This is my second attempt at recording this due to circumstances that is beyond my control. But it's me, the angry anime fan, the despair reviewer, and this is Boku no Hero Academia, chapter 230. Things are really escalating here, but also at the same time nothing is happening at all. So whatever, in this chapter first we see that Dabi was actually trying to duplicate the bullets at first, but in the beginning, as we see in a flashback, but he couldn't. And no, twice, and he twice wanted to be useful to his friends. And now that he officially knows that he is real, he is really letting loose the true power, frightening power of his twice quirk. And let me tell you, it certainly is a scary one. Remember, Giran once said that he probably could take over an entire city or a continent with that power alone. And now we truly see how dangerous this quirk can be. Because it's called Unlimited Twice Works, Sad Man's Parade. It's basically Dabi creating twices creating twices, and twice clones creating twice clones, and on so. Effectively overwhelming the other members of the Liberation Army with numbers alone as they spread all over the town. Redestro is amazed by all of this and then silently mocks, or at least quietly mocks the skeptic for have failed. So he decides to deal with this himself with angry eyes, saying that he hasn't failed a single time, only one single time in his life. While Kiran just mocks them for having that you lost advantage in number. Redestro is still confident that they have at least the upper hand in quality. And indeed, we're switching back to Dabi and Akrufa's fight. Yes, it's revealed that the Ice user's name is actually Akrufa. A pretty strange name, but we'll see what that means. So Akrufa's power truly overwhelms most of the Dabis. And not even twices overwhelm most of the twices. And Dabi have a trouble against him too, because it turns out that Akrufa can actually gather even more ice if he injects it into sewer, then lower its temperature. He can manipulate the temperature of ice, meaning that if his ice is in the water, he can even manipulate the water itself and then creating even more ice than before. Dabi feels that's pissing him off. And then Akrufa begins to go on a monologue saying that the goal of the Liberation Army is to create a society determined by the strength of your special ability. Basically, simply powering up is no different from survival. If you don't have a strong special ability, then why bother living? But Dabi do not really like to hear that. But Akrufa is very confident of the fact that he can defeat Dabi, especially as Dabi's skin begins to burn from his overusing his heat powers. So the doctor decides that it's time for him to play a little dirty, as he calls on the machine to Gigantamakia, who's asleep, saying that has been busy on the expense of his sleep. And so Gigantamakia appears from the ground, staring at the distance, perhaps where Shiriaki is. There soon is going to be chaos. Also, we're first going to talk about how much of a hypocritical views these Liberation Army is. If Akrufa's words are to be believed, then basically what they mean is you just have to rely on your quirk. The ability to take away a quirk then would be very dangerous for Liberation Army like them. Also, if you're not powering up, then that would mean you will not get high standards. Granted, Akrufa's powers probably at the beginning wasn't that impressive until Akrufa decided to train it during the Liberation Army. But still, it's worth noting that there are some quirks that do not really look that impressive, but I also still believe that anyone that is blessed with a quirk can utilize it any way they can. They just have to utilize it in a different way from their point of views. It may not be as overly fleshy as a truly destructive quirk, but it can still be useful depending on how you use it. So, quirks that are more harder to train, such as invincibility quirk and a tail quirk and so on. How would that fare in a world like this? And also, quirkless people. they cannot have abilities at all. Does that mean that just like now, they will be considered on the bottom of all food chains and perhaps mocked for it? I guess only time will tell, right? Also, let's talk about another thing here. Once again, another clue that Dabi is Toya Todoroki. Why? Because his skin is burning. Akin to how Endeavor always said that if he overusing his firepower, he burns his skin as well. He even said to Shoto in a flashback that Toya has inherited his mother's weak composition, meaning that he had more powerful fire than Endeavor, but his body couldn't handle it. Is this similar to in this situation here? Also, another thing, people have wondered if Akrifa possibly is Natsuo Todoroki. The thing is though, what Akrifa said here now, that almost to me contradicted that. Unless of course it makes perfect sense. I mean, Natsuo was portrayed as someone who clearly did not like his father, after all what's happening, and is a bit defensive for the rest of his family. And Akrifa is detailed as a very smug snake and someone who's very overconfident. Granted, if Akrifa is Natsuo, then that would make sense. He would be able to hide his true personality. Well, what I mean is, if Dabi, for example, was Toya, then it makes sense why Toya is Dabi, because after all, he has lived an abusive life. Therefore, he takes a revenge on all the hero world and everything else in it. So it makes perfect sense in that way. But if Natsuo is Akrifa, then why would he do all of this? At the beginning, I think you would believe that maybe he wishes that everyone should be able to defend themselves against abusive parents. But it's his words here that makes things so very ironical. He's basically saying, have a powerful power and then you cannot die. And if you don't, then you die. This very misanthropic way, a nihilistic way of speaking is very akin to how Endeavor do speak, I admit. Saying that without power, you can be anything, because after all he wanted to be the first and one because he wanted to be stronger than anyone else. But what I mean is, if Natsuo hates his father so much, and if he is Akrifa, then he is basically just like his father in the scenario. He is basically saying that I am strong, you are weak. Just like his father. So if he tries to say that he is not his father, then he has already failed. But again, it's not confirmed that Akrifa is Natsuo. But I guess we will see, right? You give me your faults if you have any.